You've been cheating yourself one of the most interesting, diverse, drama-driving story elements, damage types, and consequences in not only fantasy, but in fiction as a whole. Let's talk about the most disrespected, underused terror, poison. I am your creative magpie, where I help you build your best worlds that we love a little easier. Let's get down to business. Most games treat it like a minor inconvenience. Make a save, okay, you take like 3 extra damage. That's not poison, that's a slightly spicy salsa. And beyond that, it is the most common thing to just be written off as a universal immunity. Real poison, story poison, is fear you can't swing a sword at. It is something that doesn't have a level cap of lethality. It is something that can be a great power equalizer unlike any other form of damage or condition. You might be wondering what makes poison feel so dangerous. Fire's intense, but roaringly loud. Lightning is bright and flashy. You see a dragon inhale, you see the wizard raise their hand. They may have the very real ability to destroy your existence, but it's hard to say you don't understand what you're dealing with at that moment. Poison is quiet. You don't always know when the moment begins. A single cut that doesn't stop aching. A goblet with the wrong kind of sweetness. The damp air in a forgotten tomb, heavy with spores. The centipede bite that seemed just a bug, right? Poison is universally available as a story element. Assassins might be a tool you are cautious to use, but poison is a tool available to anyone clever enough or talented enough to want to engage in unfair fights. And yes, I do think this should be available to your main characters and players as well. Mechanically, in a TTRPG, this could mean maybe damage that happens later, an effect that lingers, taking time to set in. Ultimately, it boils down to uncertainty. Am I fine, or am I dying tomorrow? As a world builder, that's gold. Poison doesn't just hurt hit points, it rewrites how a player is going to behave in your world. And I know I'm usually world building bird and not mechanics bird, but I had something I wanted to steal from another game, and I think it'd be really useful to illustrate poison, so if potential rules people or people more talented at game design are in my comments, help me flesh it out. Keep watching the video. But think, your party starts asking questions, being careful with food, water, air, and even their loot isn't safe. Respecting peasants, apothecaries, hedge witches, and the guy who just knows plants awful well. You want to curb your party's murder hobo tendencies? Remember that little dash of poison is, and a night's rest away from a total party kill. I'm not saying every barkeeper needs to be a level 20 adventurer. Sometimes you can humble the power of a hungry party by the kid that just got back from med school. You see, that's world building, when a rule you introduce changes how people act and interact. It isn't a person, a place, or a legendary creature. It is a narrative cornerstone. Poison gives power to the powerless. Swords favor the strong. Fireballs favor the mages. Poison levels the playing field. A farmer with a vial can kill a king. A frail assassin can take down a legendary paladin. A desperate villager can turn a well into a battlefield. In a setting where poison is real and feared, political drama gets sharper. Trust actually matters a lot, and famous heroes can still step wrong once and die so very small. Your world feels humbler and more human. No one is too important or too powerful to choke on their own breath. The healer becomes a tactician, not a band-aid if poison is serious. Healers are suddenly quite busy. They're playing a resource management game that matters far more than it ever has before. They're not just spamming cure wounds once combat's finished up, they're identifying venoms under the lantern at 3 in the morning. After the bard woke up because of an odd feeling after an encounter with such a strange bug. Choosing which antidote to use because they only brewed 1 or 2, or maybe they're out of spells and needing to determine how to treat the symptoms until dawn. And imagine the party arguing, we can't cure everyone, so who do we save first? That's resource management with teeth. Venomously laced teeth. Give your party cleric or druid named antidotes. Nightshade's Draught, Basilisk Purge, Black Lung salts. Limited ingredients for their antidotes, and a reason to panic when 3 people start failing saved. There's only 1 dose left. Now poison isn't just extra damage, it's a hard choice. Poison builds legends by killing legends. Speaking of legends, let's talk about Hanzo the Salamander. I could glaze this man's rap sheet for a long time. In the world of Naruto, he was dangerous. For those who don't like Naruto as much as I do, or at all, let me give you the TLDR. So the Kage is the village leader, more often than not the strongest person in the village. In the world, the 3 legendary Sannin are seen as Kage level or beyond that of other Kages. Hanzo is where that name comes from because he fought all 3 Sannin in their youthful primes at once and beat their asses so bad it was fun enough for him as someone who respected their strength enough to title them the Sannin, and he let them live. Why do I talk about Hanzo? Because you want to know what Hanzo used as his main killing method? Poison. He and Granny Chiyo both used and developed poisons in the Second Great Shinobi War, that Tsunade got legendary fame from by constantly having to counteract these poisons, and poisons of 2 of the most powerful legends known to play the game. I don't want to spend too much time on Hanzo, blah blah blah, typical magpie expression, another combo, another channel, at a later point. The point is, poison-based characters become walking hazards. The assassin whose blood is venom. Injure him and your blade is now a problem. The monk who learned to harness toxins, infusing their key strikes with paralytics or hallucinations. The warlock whose patron is a hive mind of toxic fungi living under a ruined city. Poison can be a personality trait, it can define a style. The no mess, no witnesses professional who leaves victims looking perfectly pleasant. Or the brutal alchemist whose poisons make death obvious, horrifying, and public on purpose. When you give someone poison, you're not just giving them damage or reducing speed, you're giving them a reputation. Creatures that feel alien and lethal, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Earth already did that for you. Insects, arachnids, neurotoxins, paralytics, venom that liquefies the organs, a magical centipede whose bite doesn't kill, it makes your limbs stop listening, a swarm of wasp spirits that leave an invisible toxin in your bloodstream that flares anytime you cast a spell. Reptiles and amphibians, a basilisk whose gaze starts to slowly turn you to stone, but slowly calcifies your veins. A frog demon whose skin is toxic that grappling it is a save or suffer kind of choice. Not damaging the body, but the mind. And speaking of frogs, if you want to learn about cool frog race I made, you should check out my video about killing your elves. Trust me, it's more than just the thumbnail might lead it to be, it's packed with a whole lot more, including frogs. As for fungus and spores, a friendly mushroom forest that offers breathable air until you rest there a little too long and now the bard isn't waking up, and everyone's lungs feel wet. Undead animated toxic mold. Kill them, and the death cloud is the real problem. Now, another element for inspiration I want you to consider is the poison-type Pokemon. I won't list the million different Pokemon, but you have so much cool inspiration there. Reimagine Muck as magical sludge that turned into a living creature that seeks to corrupt and consume with its toxic odors. Perhaps Pokemon moves could be new dynamic spells for inspiration if your party is wanting to adapt the Great Poison War for themselves. Ask for each new creature, each new type of toxin. How does its poison feel? How does its victim suffer? How does this change what the players do? What does surviving it mean for the victims? As for mechanical hooks for TTRPGs, if you're designing for D&D or something adjacent, resist the 2d6 extra poison damage con saving throw for half habit. Again, I don't think you're wrong. You've just been cheating yourself and your party some intense story capabilities. Try, you're fine for now, in 1 hour make a con save, fail, and you gain a level of exhaustion, you start coughing blood. When the threat starts to grow, it's 1 damage per round, each time doubling. Someone better do something about that, right? If you don't care for these soft guidelines, the inspiration I spoke of at the start of the system is in reference to Magic the Gathering's infect damage. The TLDR for those who don't play Magic is if a creature has 2 infect and it deals damage to a player, that player has 2 infect counters. At 10 infect counters, they're dead. It doesn't matter their life total, they lose the game. We aren't playing Season 0 penalty games from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it doesn't matter if the player has infinite life. If they have too many infect counters, they're done. I think poison resistance shouldn't really exist. If you're immune to the majority of poisons, like, I don't know, constructs or the undead, where I think poisons that would affect them would be conditionally listed as an exception in their rulings, would otherwise be immune, but poison damage isn't a thing. It's a progression of a fate that results in a death or serious exhaustion or permanent damage. In my brain, poisons have a poison rating, that when a player is infected, it has a progressive score to the immediate effect and then a secondary number that might be an hourly total, with a player's set number based on their constitution or similar score resulting in outright death. I know this is a very long rough drafted, and I know I'm not a rules guy. You all don't come here for that, but there are some real creative people watching these videos, and I'd love to hear further from your explorations of this concept. But we should really get into curing the poisons I slip into your favorite flavored drink you sip while watching my videos. Well, what about choice-based cures? You can burn the toxic out by taking fire damage voluntarily, or ride it out and risk organ damage. The understanding that the wizard bathing you in a fireball is going to hurt, but the cleric can't heal every problem. The option for non-traditional poisons is also boundless: truth serums, memory foggers, loyalty toxins that make you feel intense affection for whoever administered them. These let poisons continue to be plot, not just math. Think about it. Regions where cups are made from a specific wood believed to absorb venom from any drink. Perhaps your paranoid party takes a side quest to venture to get a traveling set of dinnerware from that kingdom. Guilds of tasters, blessed like knights, paid like nobles. See Apothecary Diaries if you want further drama and intrigue around nobles and poison. The anime isn't for everyone, but I thought it was great. Cities where perfume is regulated because airborne toxins are historically a problem. And criminal organization of odorous assassination rises to rebel against the artistic expression of scent creation. Religious orders that see poison as a sacred trial. They microdose themselves to grow closer to the divine. Over time, they form immunities to certain levels of poison counters, perhaps. Not a resistance or an immunity, but perhaps a certain threshold of poison that can be ignored at the start. Now, your players enter a town and notice servers drinking from bottles before pouring, public fountains with charm wards against toxin, street vendors selling cheap anti-venom charms that may or may not work. This is the difference between poison being a yes or no, and poison shapes our lives. Using poison to humble heroes, but it can be, in the right hands, also cripple your vile villain. It is worth a world-building payoff. Heroes stop assuming they're untouchable, which just makes their greatest feats all the greater. This episode isn't entirely about punishing players, but humbling and still enduring despite the daunting task. A 12th level fighter can wrestle giants, but he still has to consider whether accepting a foreign king's wine is a smart idea. He still worries about a cursed thorn in a fey forest. He still respects the swamp witch who can brew things that ignore armor and glory. No matter if you're battling dragons, liches, and flumphs, you still have to be engaged with the world in a meaningful, careful way. Poison puts everyone back on the same mortal ground. You breathe, you eat, you touch, you're vulnerable. That's not unfair, that's gravity. Bring it to your next game. If you're a DM or a world builder, at least give one faction a signature poison. Make one creature's toxin infamous, with stories told long before the party ever meets it. Give your healer a moment where they're the only one who understands what's happening and how bad it is. Give your healer the need to use their resources to save people outside of direct combat. And if you're a player, yes, I don't often address you, but this is for you too. Ask what poisons exist in your setting. Invest in antidotes, herbs, alchemy tools. Consider a character defined not only by big hits, but subtle damage, over time, and with fear. Make your next character Scarecrow from Batman, or one of the other 100 characters referenced when I made this video. Don't treat poison like an afterthought of damage. Treat it like a quiet god in your world, unseen, patient, stronger than heroes, and always just one breath away. And with that, I think you all get the point. If you've made it this far, check out the Patreon. There's probably some free stuff there for you to enjoy, either, I don't know, the poison counter system in a rough draft form, or maybe I come up with and world build some poisons of my own for you guys, for free. There's a bunch of free stuff, there's paid options. Support this bird's dream. We're hitting milestones and growing, and I'm pretty sincerely grateful and pretty happy for all of you, especially if you've made it this far. You guys don't understand how much it means to me. So, I hope your campfires keep away the terrors of the night, and until next time, my dearest adventurers, magpie responsibly, and most importantly, thanks and thanks again for watching.